Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. It's Monday, you know what time it is. Go collect's hottest trending comics for the week. The Taylor Swift hype train is done. We got ourselves some new books to talk about. And these are the top 5 hottest books that have had sudden increases in movement in the market, so the most liquid this past week. But of course, before I get into the list, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I would appreciate it. But without further ado, let's get into the list. Of course, I will put a link in the description if you guys want to do your own reading. This article is written by Matt Tuck, and we got 5 more modernish books to talk about here today. Boo, I know what you guys are thinking. It's okay. We're going to learn about some new comic books out there in the market that are really starting to get hot. Starting with this one right here in the number 5 spot, we're talking about Death of the Venomverse, number 2. Kid Venom variant. New to the list this week, now sitting in the 88th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that was written by Cullen Bunn that came out in 2023 that would feature the first appearance of the new character Kid Venom. Now, if you guys don't know, Kid Venom is one of those sort of derivative characters, or I guess derivative kind of implies a negative connotation. He's just new to the Venomverse, you know, another multiverse where the symbiote interacted with, I believe he's from Japan, and we kind of have this sort of manga anime crossover into comic books, which is kind of a smart thing to do if you're Marvel comic books, because you obviously got to appeal to that side of the market. But much like Spider-Boy, you know, we're trying to appeal to the younger audience, so we got to have the young versions of the characters. And this is a book that I would say has been sort of hot in the market. Certainly no Spider-Boy, but definitely one that a lot of people have been interested in and have been picking up due to, you know, the speculation of, hey, you know, maybe Kid Venom will sort of be the next big thing. And we've been seeing, you know, those books move a little bit in the market. Now, as to why it's getting hot this week, well, Marvel's finally putting out the Kid Venom Origin number 1 issue, so he's going to get his own sort of solo title or limited series for a time, and people are starting to, you know, think, hey, maybe this is a character that Marvel will invest in the future. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look here and zoom in on the graph, as I had to blow it up from the last picture. 9/8 have 68 universal copies on the census. This, of course, is for the variant version of this comic book. Not to be confused, though, I mean, 68 currently universal copies, but I don't think this is a particularly rare version of this particular book. But as you guys can see, picking up a little bit of steam, you know, starting out with the $52 pre-sales in September and jumping up here to $63. And either way, I think that this is a pretty low entry point if you're somebody who wants to take a flyer on the Kid Venom verse. And then, of course, down here at the low grade, you're not going to see this book slab down there. But when you go into eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, they're still pretty cheap out there in the market. Typically, you can find them around that $5 cover price, maybe $10, maybe $15, depending on the deal and depending on the grade you can find for yourself. But Kid Venom, the number 5 hottest book of the week, a very interesting character. We will see if he goes to the moon with Spider-Boy. All right, let's move on now to the 4th hottest trending comic of the week. And the 4th hottest trending comic of the week, sorry here, boys and girls, this picture is actually broken, but we're talking about Department of Truth number 1, Jenny Frison variant, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 74th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that came out in 2020, written by James Tynion. That would be the first issue of his new series, The Department of Truth, but this one, of course, would be the variant cover done by Jenny Frison. Now, it's already been announced that Department of Truth is being adapted by Hollywood, so a lot of people had been speculating on this particular series. I mean, it is a very good read. It does feel like it's a perfect sort of a comic book that can be adapted to some kind of Netflix property or streaming service. So people are excited about this one. But obviously, when this came out, it was to a lot of speculation. It was to a lot of hype. There were a lot of people picking up these books, and there were a ton of variant covers like this one right here, the Jenny Frison one. If you guys don't know, Jenny Frison is one of, you know, current comic books' most desired artists. You know, she does really elegant work, a lot of beautiful women on the cover. Obviously, those are always going to be in demand and desired by comic book collectors. And so this is a variant that, you know, has been getting a little bit of attention as of late. And certainly when we get the show, it'll be interesting to see if this book has long legs for the future, because a lot of people, again, were buying into it for the speculation purposes. We'll have to see if there's going to be a lot of sellers when we actually start to get those casting and trailers and things of that nature. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. We got 1,799 universal copies on the census, 1,400 of which are at the 9/8 level, so not too difficult to get this book in a 9/8 grade. Fair market value $50, 30 moving 51, so not necessarily lighting up the lamp either. You can see that this is a book that had its peak in COVID during 2021 when it was at the $140 range, had, you know, its pullback like everything else, and now basically is sitting at the fair market value where, let's say you pick up this book for $10, you send send it in to be graded for, $20, and you end up selling it for $30 on the secondary market. Then, of course, down there at the bottom, I'm not going to see it's slabbed below grade, but when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, like I already said, you can pick them up for that, $10, maybe $15 range or so. All right, let's move on now to the third hottest trending comic of the week. And the third hottest trending comic of the week is one that we haven't actually talked about in quite some time right here. But this one is actually Batman number 609, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 46th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, it's the book that came out in 2003, written by Jeff Loeb, that would feature the first appearance of the character Thomas Elliot, who later becomes Hush. Now, as to why this book is getting hot in the market, well, we still have the Pattinson version of Batman. A lot of people have been speculating out there that the character of Hush is going to be the next villain in that series. So a lot of people were digging deep into the speculation world, and this character right here eventually has those connections to Hush. So a lot of people are thinking like, hey, this might be the next big play to pick up. I mean, it is still an older Batman book, kind of in that 2003 range, where it's not as common as some of the other modern variants. Not a lot of collectors back at that time. It is a Jim Lee cover, so there is some cool elements to this book. I mean, we're still a ways away, maybe a year away from being a year away to actually figure out if Hush is going to be playing a role. But that doesn't stop comic book speculators to getting on the hype train and picking up this book. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some values here. 1,587 universal copies on the census. We have 3 9.9s that actually got that grade. 9.8s have 960, fair market value 170, 30-day moving 152. And this is kind of an interesting one because, it is a speculation book. So there are going to be times in this book's life cycle where it does have, spikes and corrections and spikes and corrections, all the way back in 2018. I mean, there were a couple spikes for this. So a lot of people have been, thinking about this one for quite some time. Of course, shot up in 2021, had its long correction. And now kind of where we are, we're starting to, turn that corner a little bit. People are getting excited for Hush once again, but you can see kind of where it sits right now, around that 175, 160, 143 dollar range. But enough copies out there that this will be a tough one to always maintain a certain sort of floor value. Then, of course, down here at the bottom, not going to see it slabbed low grade, but when you go into eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, typically they sell around that $20, $25, maybe $50 range, depending on the deal and depending on the grade that you can find for yourself. All right, let's move on now to the second hottest trending comic of the week. And the second hottest trending comic of the week is actually a repeat here. We got ourselves Department of Truth #1 again, except this time we're talking about cover A, up 41 spots, now sitting in the number 8 slot, boys and girls, number 8. And what is the significance of this? Well, like I said, this is the book that came out in 2020, written by James Tynion. That would be the first issue of his new series, The Department of Truth. Now, as Matt points out in the article, and as I said earlier in the video, movement for this show has begun to pick up. There's a lot of speculation that they are going to be starting filming soon. So a lot of people are excited that now is finally the time that we're getting, a little bit of traction, a little bit of movement for the series. Remember, this is a book that, for the last 3 years or so has been heavily speculated on. And it's a good little lesson because I think, it reminds us that even when we get these announcements of shows being optioned or being adapted to the screen or whatever it is, it still takes a while. I mean, you have a long time and we're still, not even at that point where we're going to be getting trailers for this thing. And we're still not at that point when, the show's actually going to come out. And is the show actually going to be good? And is it actually going to last more than one season? I mean, these are all a lot of big question marks that you have to have for this type of series. But again, that doesn't stop people from picking up this book and speculating on it. And I would say that, given this current state of the market and where this book is now compared to where it was before, now seems like a decent enough time to pick it up. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. We got 3,348 universal copies on the census. As you guys can see, a lot of people slabbing this book, getting ready to flip it on the market. 9.9s have 1, 9.8s 2,988, very high 9.8 rate. Fair market value $70, 30-day moving 63. So again, a book that is heavily slabbed, heavily speculated on, had its big push in its initial release, going almost at that $200 price point in 2021, and now kind of sits basically right in line to, what it takes to get this book in your hands and actually get it graded. Then, of course, down here at the bottom, not going to see it slabbed at the low grade. It's a new book, but when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, typically you can find them being sold around that $15, $20, maybe $25 range, depending on the deal and depending on the grade. All right, let's move on now to the hottest trending comic of the week. And the hottest trending comic of the week is a return to the list a book we've talked about quite a few times before. This, of course, is Omega Men number 3, up 20 spots, now sitting in the number 7 slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 1983, written by Roger Slipher, that would feature the first appearance of the DC character known as Lobo. Now, I'm sure you guys know why this book is hot. I'm sure you guys know why people are excited about the character of Lobo. It has been speculated for quite some time that with the new James Gunn universe, he's going to be bringing Lobo into that universe, and the rumors right now are that Jason Momoa is going to be playing this character. Well, that had been talked about and speculated on. Of course, this book shot up, then it had its correction, and out of sight, out of mind. But there were recent rumors, once again, that, in fact, that Jason Momoa is going to be playing Lobo. I think that this is kind of coming in the wake of, the Aquaman 2 news and things like that. And of course, we still have Aquaman 2 to get past, but once we finally turn the corner of Aquaman 2, we're finally going to be starting to get, some of the official properties, as James Gunn puts it, like Creature Commandos and things like that, into his universe. So I think people are starting to feel like, okay, if I have any faith in James Gunn, if I have any faith in Jason Momoa with Lobo, now is a good time to once again buy back into this book. It'll be interesting to see, if this book, is able to sustain. I mean, it is a Copper Age book. There's a lot of comic book collections that are surfacing. A lot of those collections have books like this and New Mutants 98. So the Copper Age books are always a little bit difficult to maintain that floor value. But of course, these books are still very popular, and they could become even more popular if Momoa is actually successful with this character. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. Census has it at a whopping 8,919 universal copies. 9/8 have 2,947 on the census. Fair market value 325, 30-day 324. And as you guys can see, this is a book that, again, has been speculated on a bunch of times, had a up, had a correction, had a up, had a correction, had a up, had a correction, had a big up in 2021, had a big correction, had a big up once again when we were getting those rumors, and then again had its correction and pullback, and now is kind of, starting to turn that corner once again. But, as you guys can see, this has been a book that has been trending up year after year, big swings, ups and downs, but generally speaking is getting more expensive. And of course, I think that is a testament to the excitement of what we see in the DC universe. I mean, last couple sales, basically around that $300 range, maybe almost $400, $395 here, $300 here, $390 there. So very interesting to see that. Of course, down here at the low grade, not going to always see it slabbed at the low grade. I mean, you might see a few here and there, but not really worth talking about it, because when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, typically you can find them, on the low, maybe being sold around that $50 level, maybe up to $100, depending on the grade that somebody is asking for. But I would say generally around that range of 50 to 100. Anyways, that's all for this video. Those are Go Collect's hottest trending comics for the week. Let me know what you guys think. Kind of a new, interesting list this week. No Dazzler books on there to be had. I guess the Dazzler hype train will have to wait until we finally get Deadpool number 3. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. See you all in the next one.